Yep, welcome, round 8 of the candidates in London, and again the second round where I was personally at the site, being able to watch the games. Yeah, it's a great experience to watch the games live and being analyzed on site also by the players who often join after the games. It's really nice, and if you have the chance to visit the tournament, it's really something I can heavily recommend. In fact, I also met a couple of viewers of the channel at the site who it's very nice to have some channel supporters on site and getting to know you in person. Yeah, well, let's go to the games. We had Carlsen against Aronian today. The two favorites and co-leaders of the tournament playing each other. But have a look at the game. Quite often those heavyweight clashes are not so great, and unfortunately this wasn't one of the most exciting games. We have a Catalan opening, and it's the mainline Catalan with short castles and now capture on c4. This is the absolute main line of the opening, and Carlsen goes for queen c2, which is normal. a6 and now queen c4. a4 is the main alternative, which has the advantage compared to queen takes c4 that it keeps more pieces on the board and somehow leads to somewhat sharper game. This is what Aronian in fact played in some games. But Carlsen took b5, queen c2, bishop b7. And here the big parting of the ways. He played bishop to d2, which is the main try for an advantage in this position. It of course has been played before numerous times, and here we have bishop d6, a3. Yeah, this is the idea. White intends to play b4, but Aronian doesn't really care. He plays knight b to d7, b4, and now in this position he plays a strong but maybe slightly surprising move. He plays rook to a7, which is the kind of move which is played by a very strong player or very weak player. In this case, we know it's a very strong player. Rook moves of this kind sometimes are weird and bad, because what is the rook doing there? But here it has got a very good and concrete idea. Black wants to play queen to a8, and this sets up some pressure on the long diagonal. Also with rook and queen on the a file, there's a5 as a possibility. Well, it continued. Knight c3, queen to a8, and knight to h4. Yeah, knight to h4 is not a move that is too inspiring. But what is white actually doing in this position? One additional issue here is the move knight b6, knight to c4, possibly. White squares are weakened, and I don't really know what white's big idea is supposed to be in this position. Maybe rook to e1, something like this. It's maybe more testing. But black has just something like this. And what is white supposed to do now? Yeah, somehow it seems that all this is not too great for white. So Carlsen's preparation really failed here. It's simply nothing for white. He played knight to h4. Aronian exchanged and now played the simple but very strong move c6. c6 protects the b pawn so that a5 is a possibility. And the thing is, white doesn't have anything against this idea, and he actually needs to be careful now to keep this equal, to have something against this a5 idea. Played rook c1, a5, knight e4, exchanging a couple of pieces. This is logical. Rook c8 because c6 was hanging, and now he played knight to f4, intending to get this piece back into play. But okay, black of course just takes here, and if you now would take with the pawn, there's even rook a2, and this is already starting to get really annoying for white. There's also knight f6, d5 coming, so that's not the way to go. He played bishop takes b4, and now black has a choice. He can also take on b4 and play rook a4 or something like this. But Aronian just went for c5, which simply exchanges everything. Queen here hangs, so you need to exchange queens now. Takes, and it's simply a dead position. Can look, and it's quite funny that here's move 31, and you cannot draw in this tournament before move 30. So in this position they actually could have made a draw, but somehow they for whatever reason played like 10 more moves, and here it was agreed drawn. So a quite disappointing game actually. It's if you look at the times, it was over in about 1.5 hours. Of course, not great, but what can you do? It's simply Carlsen went for a very safe opening with the Catalan. Aronian had his preparation finally completed and played this strong rook a7 and queen to a8. And after that, it's simply nothing for white. Yeah, on that level, a pretty weak preparation by white here, by Carlsen. I mean, what can you say? I must be honest. If you want to press a bit, then this is simply not the way to go. Maybe more with 8a4 or something, but this was simply a non-game and a bit comparable to his game against Kramnik, where there also was nothing with white. He really needs to win some black games in this tournament, and he did so far, because with white he didn't do so much against the big guys, so to say. Alright, so this ended in a draw. The next game I want to look at, but only briefly, is Grischuk against Ivanchuk, and I will explain to you why I don't look at it so deeply. We had a Sicilian defense and an open Sicilian, in fact. Here Ivanchuk played the very surprising move g6. This is surprising because it is actually a well-known fact that this should lead to a really big advantage for white. But Grischuk didn't play it. He spent a couple of minutes and didn't take this chance. It was very, very weird to me that he didn't do it. The normal way to continue is something like this, and it's an excellent position for white. I don't really know why he didn't do it. Played bishop b3, and after this we transpose to a regular accelerated dragon position. The early queen a5, of course, intends to grab this pawn and use the pin. So white is forced to play short castle. It's not possible to get to this long castle hacking lines. And this is all very standard. Knight d5 now is a slightly uncommon move, but certainly a good idea. The idea is if black plays it simple and just takes, like this, then this kind of structure is really a big advantage for white, as the e7 pawn is so weak and white can just play normal pile-up moves against the e7 pawn. So here, at the end, is also black's king under under fire. So this exchange on d5 is really a bad move. Rook e8 is fine by Ivanchuk, and now Grischuk took on f6 and played c3. And I think this looks like a slightly better position for white. It's not much, but a little bit. He's got comfortable development and good pieces in the center, and he's got this f4 idea also. Ivanchuk played it in very interesting fashion. He played knight e5, tending knight g4, for example. And now Grischuk really spent lots of time, and at the end went h3. He said in the press conference that he spent his time mostly on calculating f4, knight g4, and then some very, very complicated variations that, frankly speaking, I couldn't follow. He was rattling them off so quickly. It's I cannot reproduce this really. But he spent lots of time on this. At the end, he settled for h3 after more than 30 minutes. At least I have some idea now what he's spent 30 minutes on, because honestly, I would have played h3 also in this position, but probably after 5 minutes and not 30, which only means that I'm superficial and not digging deeply. He really showed some amazing stuff after f4, but or let's say it was very deep stuff. I don't know if it was amazing. But he spent lots of time on this. And look at the clocks. This is the fun thing. They both have spent like an hour after 13 moves. Ivanchuk now queen a6, which is an interesting idea. It sets side on d3. And now knight c2, again after a while. This is an interesting move. It prepares this bishop d4 idea, and maybe intends knight b4 to d5. Very interesting move. Knight d3 by Ivanchuk and queen f3. This is also an interesting idea, piling up here on f7. And I think it almost forces black's reply. Played bishop e6 and now bishop d4. And in fact, I think it's really good, a well played game. I mean, it looks very correct in a way. They've got some more exchanges. Queen b6 and now rook a3. So it looks like pretty much a normal game. White is maybe very, very slightly more comfortable. He's got a bit of an idea on the a file, maybe can play b4, b5, and yeah, it's a little bit of something. I mean, Gelfand was watching the game, and after the press conference, he joined in the analysis room for a couple of minutes to show some points of his game, but also look at the other games. And he said that white has a little bit of something here, but probably not much. And that's now the reason why I don't want to spend too much time on this. Look at the clocks. They both have like 8 minutes. And now Ivanchuk was simply still thinking long. I mean, have a look at this. Just look at the clock times, which are fairly accurate. There's not much happening on the board. Look at the clock times. 2 minutes. I simply don't understand what this person is, what he's doing. I mean, you need to just move quicker here, to stay in the game. I mean, you cannot spend 2 minutes when you have 8 minutes left on a move like rook c8. I mean, this is a nothing move. You can play it in 10 seconds. And knight c2, and again he spent a minute, or what? Yeah, a minute for exchanging. Look at the clocks. 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes 20. So he kept spending a minute in a situation where you simply need to move. And a couple of moves later, yeah, 1 minute again, 1 minute again, and we came to a point where it was impossible to simply make the time control. Now it is 11 moves in 1 minute, which, if you only know online chess, seems like an eternity. But it's a different situation in over the board play. It's possible to make the moves, but it's not at all easy. 14 seconds. Yeah, we had a situation where he had to move 10, had to make 10 moves in in 25 seconds or something. This is not entirely correct here, and he actually managed. The times are not completely accurate, but he was like 25 seconds for really, I don't know, lots of moves, 8 moves or something, and he still kept thinking. I mean, not like moving instantly, but thinking for a couple of seconds and then move. So at the end, you know how you already guessed it. After this he set the time again for the 3rd time in this tournament, and I really don't get what he's doing. It's pretty pointless to play if you lose on time in pretty much a nothing position. I mean, white is probably very, very, very slightly better, but it's really easy, especially after the queen exchange, to make a couple of nothing moves and simply to go over move 40. I mean, just stay in this position. Let's say here, let's say you're worried about knight d5. Okay, then you play knight f6 and just stay. I mean, I don't know. It's really weird sometimes what he's doing. Okay, so Grischuk won this game, which means he's on 50% again. And yeah, what can you do? I mean, if your opponent is simply willing to commit suicide on the clock, then you just take the point and say thank you. Okay, so 2 games left, and these were the more interesting games today. Let's go with the Rajabov Gelfand game first. We had another English opening here, this with knight c6, a fairly popular line that Gelfand already had played before in this tournament against Aronian, going for this line. d4 we also have seen, and this is what Rajabov played. In fact, those moves are known from the Carlsen Kramnik game, where Carlsen played bishop f4 and didn't get anything out of the opening. The maybe most combative move to get a fight going is a3, which maybe it's a bit counterintuitive that a3 should be the most interesting move, but probably it is. Still the most interesting to try. This prevents any bishop b4 counter plays and prepares e4 later. So if black plays a move like this, you can actually go e4. So a3 is an interesting way to play here, and maybe the move that I would play myself as white. Rajabov, however, played the move g3. Yeah, g3 is the older move in this position, and yeah, it made me curious what would happen now, because this is a line that I had analyzed years ago, and always tried to make work for white in a way that well, I would like to play this position. It's not bad for white. It's simply I never found a good line that I personally like. Let's see what happened. It went along the lines that I was investigating years ago. Queen b6. This attacks the knight, so white needs to move it. And the line that I looked at mostly years ago was knight b5. The idea being to give this check for one thing, and to simply put this knight on a useful active square. It can lead to very sharp play after knight e5, which attacks the pawn, and white has interesting ways to play. For example, bishop f4 is very sharp. But this didn't happen. He played knight to b3, which is the standard way to go about that. Knight e5. This is black's idea. He wants to attack the pawn and provoke white to somewhat weaken the position. The thing is, how do you protect this pawn? You cannot easily sacrifice it, so he played e4 now, protecting it, and now bishop b4. So this is black's idea. He's playing with pieces, knight to e5, attacking c4. Now the bishop to pressurize the center. So it's a bit of a hyper-modern approach. White gains space in the center, but black attacks it with pieces. Queen e2. This looks a bit awkward, but the problem is e4 was hanging because of this pin. So no way to protect it. He could play here, but okay, c4 is a pawn. Queen e2 is the only move that not loses material. d6. And now it's white's move. Here, back then when I analyzed this, I mostly tried to make bishop d2 work, but it doesn't seem to be so great. This was recently tried in a game by a German top player, Daniel Friedman, a former teammate of mine. It's always funny to see him play the big guys when we played together in the Bundesliga years ago. Yeah, well, he played Arnold in Baden-Baden just some weeks ago with bishop d2, but it didn't really lead to much after quick a5, a4. Rajabov plays the old way, so to say. This is well known for years. f4, kicking the knight. Knight c6, bishop e3. So black took and retreated the queen. So this is popping up by force after bishop e3. So what is this position? White has got pawn weaknesses here. He's got a very bad structure on the queen side. And what's the compensation? Well, you've got, let's put this on the board, you've got two bishops, which can be potentially very good for white, those bishop pair, or this bishop pair. And you have some chances on the king side. How so? Let's say black would castle here, which is a normal move. Then white can actually play for g4, g5 if he wants. Let's say castles, b6, g4. This kind of position is has been played numerous times. f5 and white tries for some big attack on the king side. It doesn't have such a great reputation, to be honest, for white, because okay, you've got chances, but you also are completely busted on the queen side. It's questionable if this g4 stuff is really good. But in this position, Gelfand played a slightly unusual move, but I guess this will change. If the other possibility could be that this line is out of business now. He played e5, and this is simple and strong chess. I mean, just putting the pawn here means that the g2 bishop will always bite on his own pawn. It's simply a bad piece on g2, and it's very simple and very very convincing, if you ask me, this move. The only possible objection with this move could be the move c4 to c5. And this is what Rajabov played. If he would not play this, let's say he would castle in this position, then black would have played b6, yeah, and stopping c5. And now you are in a situation which is a bit comparable to the one I put on the board earlier with e6, but now with the pawn on e5, there's even no way white can play e4, e5. And this position is simply good for black, with bishop a6 coming and attacking the pawn on c4. This is why Rajabov played c5. And he mentioned in the press conference that he actually had looked at this line at some point. Not sure if he did so right before the game. It's possible, because frankly speaking, you could easily arrive at this position. Gelfand has played this stuff for a number of times, so he could anticipate this position. Rajabov said that here he anticipated a line that he had analyzed with an engine. This was d takes c5, bishop c5, and takes on f4. After this, there is queen d2, takes g3, and long castles, which looks, frankly speaking, completely insane. And the even more insane fact is that the computer wants to play here takes on h2 and assesses this position as completely equal because of bishop here, queen b6, bishop c5, and this strange kind of repetition. So, okay, this is of course complete nonsense. The repetition, I mean, white can play numerous other things, but this whole line is completely crazy, where black captures everything right to the pawn on h2, and he castled long even, and white's attacking black's king, which is stuck in the center. So what a weird line. This is what Rajabov somehow had looked at before, but now we can see a difference in yeah, in, I don't know how to call it, maybe chess yeah, approach to the game or whatever. I mean, Gelfand just played here b6, which he had prepared. You can also see it from the time spent. And this is simply a good move. Simple and good chess. It questions this pawn. Where do you want to go? White needs to take now. It's no way he can allow black taking on c5. And the thing is, well, you cannot really take here, as a takes b immediately allows this bishop a6 move, and black simply has a fine position after that. At first you might think, okay, b6 isn't so great. Okay, it isn't, but those pieces, those pawns are weak, and this knight is especially bad. It can never go anywhere active, can only drop back. Taking on b6 really is not looking like a good option. He took on d6, after which, okay, the queen just recaptured. Now castles, and now have a look at this position. White has really an awful knight on b3. It doesn't control anything, and he's got the pawn weaknesses. And this basically means that black's task now is relatively easy. He knows what to do, and this is the difference for white. It's not so easy to determine what you should play. Black tries to activate pieces and directing them against the weaknesses, like on e4, c3, a2. And what is white doing? He's got he's got two bishops, but what use are the bishops if they placed like this one here, just biting on the e4 pawn? In fact, here a suggestion that Rajabov came up with at the press conference was taking on e5. Maybe this is really an interesting idea. Knight e5 and now knight d4. The big difference to the game is that this knight is actually playing, and playing really good in the center of the board, not standing on b3 and being not able to move at all. However, it is, from a structure point of view, it's a disaster. White has got 4 pawn islands against 2, which means all kinds of endgames would be terrible. And well, Rajabov said it himself in the press conference. This is kind of a it's not the thing you really aim for. It's just some sort of last ditch attempt to get something. It's not great. Yeah, well, he played f5, which I must admit at first looked really dangerous to me, like g4, g5. Isn't this dangerous for black? But in fact, it doesn't materialize. Gelfand here could have played queen a3 immediately, intending bishop to a6. And this is maybe even stronger than what he played, which was good, but maybe this was even stronger. Let's focus on the game, which saw a similar idea. Rook d8, rook d1, and queen a3, intending bishop a6. And activating this bishop, of course, is huge for black. It simply doesn't have any future on c8. It must go to a6. And here he took on d8 with check. Knight recaptures. And now bishop to g5. Trying to maybe damage black's structure a bit or get some counterplay on the king side. Gelfand played bishop a6 as planned. Queen moved and queen to e7. So the queen really did his job, her job on a3 to allow bishop a6. Now you can return and coordinate the pieces. And as mentioned, it is much easier for black to continue. You just go here, maybe here, attacking e4, rook to d8, exchange one pair of rooks. It's really easy to do. And what is white doing in the meantime? I think white already is in trouble. I mean, it feels like you should be able to defend better than what Rajabov did, but even if you look at it with an engine, which I did obviously, it doesn't really is so obvious how to defend this better. Rook d1, knight b7, bishop f3, probably intending to exchange this bishop, or maybe on a good day activate it. Yeah, black gets rid of the one pair of rooks, and now he has exchanged all those pieces that you don't need for attacking those pieces. Rooks are not so, or these pawns, rooks are not so great for that, so get rid of them, and now use the knights, the queen, the bishop to attack the pawn weakness. Here we go, and e4 is hanging. Yeah, Rajabov decided to get rid of one of the knights, but it didn't really help. Gelfand recaptured with the pawn. He could have taken with the queen, but this slows down the play a bit. I mean, you want to activate your queen, and you simply take much longer if you recapture with the queen. And also this has the advantage that you don't need to worry about the back rank now. Black can always play king to g7. It's a good move simply. Also protecting e5. Queen here and queen c7. Yeah, and queen c7 is very strong. It has got various ideas. This is the most dangerous one with mate on f1. Quite funny. And it also brings other ideas into the game. Knight to b5, for example, attacking c3, or just queen c6, attacking e4. Queen c6 is probably better than knight b5, which looks like a self pin after bishop e2. Yeah, queen c7, this is really strong, and Rajabov with the time ticking down, he played now the move a4, which intends to get some kind of activity here, but this in fact allows a very strong reply by Gelfand, which he found. Played queen d7, this is very, very, very strong. Attacks the pawn and threatens knight f5 and knight e4 because d1 bishop is hanging, and yeah, this is now really completely lost. White has no move to cover all this. He played a5 and now knight e4. Instead, queen b5, the immediate queen b5 was also very strong, threatening mate, and white here has also no move. But this was very strong also. Yeah, he secured the bishop, but now just this move with the mate idea. White has only one possible way to cover that. He played queen here, but now knight g5. Huh? Now notice the king, queen a8. You just play king g7 and it's nothing. It's little nuances like this that really help. If you are able to spot that takes with the pawn is stronger. So yeah, queen a8 check is no move. Played queen here, and after b takes a5, Rajabov resigned. There's simply bishop b7 coming, or the a pawn, depending on what white is moving next. So the first win for Gelfand in this tournament, and a really deserved win, I must say. He came up with a really good innovation in the opening with b6, which I think should trouble white. I mean, I cannot really see someone repeating this as white, because it was such a wipeout. After like 20 moves, black was already more comfortable, and he really played a kind of model game to take advantage out of those weaknesses that white created. Yeah, this whole line with the pawn weaknesses on the queen side maybe looks a bit in doubt now after this approach that Gelfand introduced here with e5 and b6. It's really looking good for black, I would say. Okay, so this was a good game by Gelfand. The other one that I'd like to show in some more detail was Kramnik against Svidler. Of course, Kramnik, he has played 7 draws now. The whole first half of the tournament was draws, but it wasn't really like a tournament where he didn't fight or anything. He did fight, and he had chances to win games, but it didn't work out. He could easily have +2, but he also could have easily had -1 if Gelfand yesterday would have found knight to g5. I mean, would have found is the wrong term. After Kramnik blundered with knight e8 yesterday, knight g5 was calculated by Gelfand. That's not a move you need to find. In a way, everybody sees that it is dangerous. He miscalculated somehow, and Kramnik slipped out of this. He could have easily lost the game. Okay, so 7 draws and 1.5 point behind the leaders, so you need to win, yeah, with white. So Svidler played the Grunfeld, of course, his main opening for all his life against d4. I was actually a bit surprised that he did this, but okay, I think probably you need to stick to your guns. But he has lost in the Grunfeld so often against Kramnik. I don't know. I just felt he would do something else, but okay. We get a main line, and Kramnik plays the bishop e3 line, knight f3, bishop e3. This is one of the lines that he has played regularly over the years. In fact, it was the line that he used in the second game of the 2000 World Championship match, which was played in London actually, against Kasparov, and he used this to win the second game, and this really somewhat upset Kasparov. He had prepared the Grunfeld for the match, and he lost the first Grunfeld against this line. Okay, it continued queen a5, attacking this pawn, so queen d2 makes sense. Not the only move, but certainly the normal one. Knight c6, rook c1, and now takes. This is the most popular option actually against bishop e3, going to this end game, where white has a good center, which looks comfortable, but he's got one problem. The king is in the center, of course. It continued castles, d5, immediately kicking the knight, and now rook d8. This has been played for more than 100 times actually in my database. Or am I confusing something? But it has played really lots of times. Lots of times. And the amazing thing is, here Kramnik played without much hesitation the move king to c2. And this is not a novelty. I actually found one game in my database, at least, with this move from the early 80s. A game between, I think, 2 international masters from East Germany, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I don't get it totally wrong, but it wasn't like a super top 10 game or something. So king to c2, and it looks like a weird move if you ask me. It blocks the c file, And what is the king exactly doing on c2? The normal move here is king e1. And one thing that I need to show is the continuation after king e1. The main move here is knight to a5. It is known that this isn't so great because white can take and get a rather big space advantage. Maybe first bishop c4 and then f4, but it's this kind of position. This is why, after king e1 they play this move. And now an important point is white very often plays bishop g5 here, attacking the pawn. And in fact black can ignore this. He plays very often in this position bishop to d7. Just keep this position in mind. The idea after taking is rook e8, d6, knight c6, and at the end there's e4 falling. Yeah. In the game, Kramnik played this move. And if you now continue in the same fashion, knight a5, bishop g5, bishop b7, just the same moves, then white can actually take here. It's a different thing because after rook e8, white has bishop b4, and in the other position with the king on e1 there would be rook takes e4 with a check, just winning this piece on b4. Of course there's no check here. This means that black has a problem. He cannot simply take on e4. In fact, a fun thing is in this line that black here has the very strong move knight c4, which is of course impossible to see beforehand. When you, maybe not impossible, but it's really difficult. The idea is after bishop takes, there's rook here, and now these bishops are skewered. Knight here is answered by bishop h6, and really you cannot save your bishops. You will lose one of them back, and black has equalized here easily. Even it's a good equality, nothing to worry about. This is one idea of Kramnik's move, not the only one, but this is one idea probably. Svidler was surprised, obviously. I mean, and understandably, it's basically a novelty. And he went knight to e5 after long thought. And I'm pretty sure that he didn't like to play this move because it leads to the structure that I mentioned before with f4 that simply looks better for white. I mean, white must have some advantage in this position simply because of the central dominance. It's a question how much advantage is this, but it's clear that white is somewhat better. And the worst thing is that this is the kind of position that Kramnik is playing exceptionally well, maybe better than anyone else in the world. This kind of position with a central majority where the opponent doesn't have any play. He's simply deadly in this. At this point I would have taken bets that white wins the game simply because of the player and the position. I mean, I like the position. I would have loved to have this, but Kramnik is just great in this. Okay, he needed to move the king out of the c file at some point, so king to b3 and f6. Yeah, e5 was a possibility, so he stops that. And now a4, a typical move. You want to prevent black from getting active play with b5. And now he played rook c8, h4, typical move, intending h5 to open the h file and combine threats on the queen side like this with play on the king side. Another general idea in this position is to prepare e4, e5 with bishop d4, for example. e5 would be a big progress for white. Yeah, h4. Svidler played rook b8, and Kramnik played bishop to b5. Simple and strong. Taking on a7 is bad after rook a8. Yeah, a4 is saying black is even winning in this position. He cannot take. Kramnik played this move, and this initiates a forced sequence now. Black basically needs to take, not much else. Retakes, and now a6. This is also pretty much forced as a7 was saying, and of course you cannot play something like this. This is just awful. Rook c6, and white dominates completely. Just a6, and now b6. Yeah, in this position, it's also it's still a question how much of an advantage this really is. White is certainly better, but is it something tangible, something that you convert into a win? In fact, here there are more than one options. Svidler played king f7 immediately. In the analysis room, we discussed this: rook takes c1, rook takes c1, and king f7. And in fact here I made a suggestion. I'm pretty proud of this. I think it's really a great move. Rook f1. And I looked at this afterwards, and the engine actually wants to play this as well, which is always nice to see the computer yeah, telling you that you actually for once made a good move. Rook f1 has the idea to play e5 tactically with the king on f7. And if black plays something like e6, you have e5, because this is a check, and this is why rook f1 is a good idea. And this is in fact a disaster. I mean, losing a piece. So black would need to move the bishop now and have this absolutely awful position. Rook f1 is a good idea, but it didn't happen. He played king f7 immediately. Yeah, now Kramnik played h5. You basically need to do this after you went h4. It makes sense. Black exchanged, and white exchanged on g6. Yeah, here it was pretty surprising, for me at least, that Svidler captured now on g6 with the king. I was basically only expecting him to take with the pawn, but maybe this in fact wasn't so great as well. King g6 maybe was better. After taking with the pawn, it's not easy. Okay, the first move is easy. You need to take with the bishop. Take with the rook is completely useless, as black will get the h file. Don't want that. So taking with the bishop. And now this position is very interesting. You can invest some time to analyze this. It's really a fine line between equal play and white having ideas all the time. White, I think, still should be somewhat better, but it's probably defensible, but not at all easy. I can put something on the board. Let's say here, bishop to c5, attacking the pawn. And then a good idea for white is simply to go here, bishop b2. Black cannot take, of course. This check. This is too much. You lose due to the central pawns, and this just picks up the poor rook on b8. So black cannot take on b6. He need to do something else. Maybe this one, to have rook g7 available. But now e5. Bishop b6 and bishop a3, attacking a7. Something like this, for example. White has sacrificed the pawn, but he's got very dangerous play. And I'm not so sure. I think it is probably good for white. Still, it's not a forced line, it's just a sample line. It feels like after taking with the pawn, black is also in trouble. Maybe it was better. It's very difficult to say. This is also the thing why this position is so uncomfortable. Black has got nothing active he can do. He just needs to defend, and white can try numerous ways to improve the position. Yeah, king takes, bishop takes, and now it continues here. In fact, it was possible for Svidler to play the move h5, and maybe this was a possible improvement. After h5, the idea is if white plays f5 and grabs on h5, there's rook g8, and this is nothing. You simply, for white, I mean, attack this pawn. White cannot protect it, and this means black is perfectly alright. So white probably shouldn't play even f5. You could go for an improvement or improving move like this or something, or rook h4, a possibility. Another idea would be to play this and play bishop a3, getting rid of the bishop and then try to capture. But here black can take, playing rook c8. Maybe h5. h5 seems tougher to me. He played rook g8, allowing this g4 move, and he said, Svidler said in the press conference that he somehow forgot about this idea that white can play g4, and now it's really uncomfortable. h6 he played, rook h5, and I think after the next move it's maybe gone and not really not a tenable position anymore. Bishop c5 seems tougher. I mean, still I would prefer white by quite a big margin, but it's still it's a fight. After this, there's something like this, just for argument's sake, attacking h6. Black covers it, and then it simply continues with white playing something like this. White is a pawn down, but it's simply a good position. I mean, b7 is not the move that troubles you. The unit on b7, the pawn, is not something that troubles you immediately as white, and you have ideas to push in the center with your pawns. You attack h6, so this is somewhat passive, the rook on h8. It's not clear to me. You would need to analyze this deeper, but this is probably what black should have tried. What he did in the game seems to lose. Basically, he played. Let's go back. He played king to f7, and after this, white managed e5 and e6, and this is too much. Capturing also wouldn't have helped. After this, you need to really go into a passive position here with the king on f8. Kramnik first covered the pawn. King g7 and f5. Yeah, and this is the problem. What are you doing with this pawn? If black plays rook to h8, there is a simple idea of bishop f4, and what now for black? It's really a disaster. If you capture here, you've got this move coming. The idea is, if you take now, you even have this option. You get a new queen. So black would need to move the king now, and after g5, it's simply a disaster. Those pawns decide. Yeah, he played rook d8, bishop h6 with check, king back, and king c4. Easy. You need to protect this pawn. It's much more important than b6, of course. Yeah, black took, and now g5. And This is simply great, yeah. You have those active pawns advanced, and they will guarantee you some pass pawns that will win the game. Attacking the rook, and rook g4. Simple and strong, now just threatening to take with check. King here, and here Kramnik calculated for a bit and then played a winning sequence. He took here. The simple thing is, if black captures the bishop, you simply take, and then this 4 pawns is a bit much. This will promote. He recaptured, and now e7. You probably can also retreat the bishop and win, but have a look at this. For example, if you go here, there's still something to calculate. I mean, this is easy, but it's maybe not 100% clear cut. This simply wins. Attacking the rook gives a check, and the 2 pawns are simply too much. Svidler played this. If he would take here, there's d6 and promoting. This also doesn't help. It's a tempo here. Yeah, in the game there was bishop c5, and after rook c4, Svidler resigned, as there's simply rook c5 coming, and then your pawns are promoting. So a very, very nice win here for Kramnik in a very typical fashion. I mean, these kind of games he won a lot with this advantage in the center, the big pawn center, and at the end there were pawns pushing through in the center. I think, of course, there was some better defense that Svidler could have played, but I think the real issue was this early idea in the opening, which now put Svidler to the test in a way. Where do you go with your knight? Knight e5 leads to a very one-sided position, which is maybe with great play a draw for black, but it's not fun, and it's exactly the position that Kramnik wanted. Or you play knight a5, and probably he saw some line after knight a5 that he didn't like, and he didn't want to go into this more forcing way to play, knowing that Kramnik had analyzed all this at home. Knight e5 is the sort of move that, okay, I know I'm worse, but I'll try to survive and with a good defense draw the game. Knight a5 is the move that says, okay, I don't really believe you. I think knight a5 is the best move anyway, so I'll go for it, and I don't mind that you have all this prepared to move 30 or something. Yeah, so he took this practical decision, knight e5, but at the end he lost the game. It's still not 100% clear to me if he could have defended successfully. Be interesting to put in more time to find this out. All right, so we had four games, or let's say 3 games, and some draw. It really was a bit disappointing to have this clash of the 2 leaders. Have this end so early, but it sometimes happens with great preparation. You simply need to acknowledge this in modern chess. It's nothing that you can do much about. In fact, Carlsen is a prime example that you can play with excellent results without this deep computer prep, but it sometimes happens to him if he plays somewhat less inspiring opening with maybe not the biggest ideas behind it, that the game peters out to a draw. He obviously didn't want to risk anything. I mean, if he would push hard, he would play, I don't know, let's say with white the Scotch with some tactical ideas or whatever, and he didn't do that. He went for the Catalan, which is a safe choice, but very often just ends up in a draw. Yeah, thanks for watching, and tomorrow I'll be on again with the game Kramnik against Carlsen, which is very important for the tournament, of course. Yeah, thanks for watching. Until tomorrow, bye.